for joining us in our bi-weekly discussion of the Srimad Bhagavatam. We'll start with our Mangalacharan prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavatir Naishtiki Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. So we are resuming our discussion from, these are the prayers of Queen Kunti, the first canto, 8th chapter, and we are resuming from verse 25. Vipada Shantutah Shashva Tatra Tatra Jagat Guru Bhavata Darshanam Yatsyad Apunar Bhavadarshanam. I wish that all those calamities would happen again and again, so that we could see you again and again. For seeing you means that we will no longer see repeated births and deaths. So last week we had discussed in verse 24, Kunti Devi had given a representative list of calamities that they had gone through and how they were saved, whether directly or indirectly by Krishna, but in all cases how they were saved. And in this verse, she is making a very unusual request, that she is saying that may those calamities happen again and again, because they're providing an impetus for us to see you again and again. So Kunti Devi, very much like an acharya, she makes a very profound point that in the next 2 to 3 verses she will elaborate on. So if you look at this verse, then it immediately there are several questions that come to one's mind. One is Krishna the god of suffering? Is suffering the only way to see Krishna? The second question is Krishna material? Because the sufferings are material, and if the sufferings is the process to reach Krishna, so then the goal is also material. Third, that are there any other ways that do not enjoy, that do not require this repeated suffering? So Kunti Devi has dropped this loaded point over here, and then she will elaborate upon it in the next 3 to 4 verses. So let us see that what is the point that she is making over here. So one may ask that, and this would be the first question that would come to the heart of a devotee, that one takes to the process of devotion, one takes to the process of piety, means that one's impious reactions are neutralized. If not neutralized, they are at least reduced. So the prayojan of bhakti is Krishna's protection. So then why should devotees suffer? And this is a common preaching question also. If we see devotees going through different sufferings, whether it's in terms of diseases, whether it's in terms of financial situations. So externally, they appear to be going through the same kind of sufferings that anybody else is going to. And then one may ask that what is the whole point of taking to the process of bhakti, if the prayojan of bhakti is not being met. Now, the real prayojan of bhakti is not protection but abhay, but fearlessness. And there is a subtle difference between the two. So fearlessness means that one is not, literally it means one is not scared. And one is not scared regardless of the situation. Whether the person is with a cow or whether the person is with a tiger, the person is not scared in either of the two situations. So abhay does not mean that the person will never face a tiger. But what it means is that when he faces a tiger, the person will still not will react the same way as if he's in the presence of a cow. So this addresses this implicit question of the apparent mitigation of the prayojan of bhakti. Now, the verse is also seemingly making this point that anxiety propels one in towards Krishna. That is why Kunti Devi is saying that if I have to see you again and again, let these calamities come again and again. And Prabhupada says it's true right away. He says it's true. And then he gives the analogy that a mother by nature is affectionate to the child, but when the child is crying, then the mother's affection becomes intensified. The anugraha, the mercy in the mother, becomes the dominant bhav when the child is crying. Otherwise, the child is playing, laughing, the mother is happy, and she leaves the child. But as soon as the child cries, especially if small child, the mother will drop everything and rush to the child. And in the same way, when one becomes more dependent on Krishna, then one can see Krishna's hand in his life more clearly. Now, each of this point, and again, this verse is very deep. So each of this point that we are making has a defect, and as introspective, philosophically inclined devotees, I'm sure you're seeing the defects. But what I would ask you to do is to hold on to it while we go through the verse, because Kunti Devi and Prabhupada, they will, as the verses unfold, they will address these. They will address these defects. Now, the obvious defect in this of course is that what kind of a mother will only be attentive to a child if he is crying? That's not the kind of mother that you would want. So let's keep that defect on the side. But the core point that is being made, that is anecdotally true. Yes, when the child cries, the mother becomes more attentive towards the child. So Kunti Devi next says that bhavata darshanam apunar bhavadarshanam. That bhavata darshanam, by seeing you, apunar. Punar means again and again. Apunar means not ever. Bhavadarshanam. And bhavadarshanam is the material world. So she is saying that by seeing you, I will never have to see the material world again. So this is the key that is explaining away a lot of the implicit defects. So the analogy that Srila Prabhupada gives in the purport is a man may see a tiger swallowing him in a dream, and he may cry for this calamity. Actually, there is no tiger and there is no suffering. It is simply a case of dreams. In the same way, all calamities of life are said to be dreams. If someone is lucky enough to get in contact with the Lord by devotional service, it is all gain. Contact with the Lord by one of the 9 devotional services is always a forward step on the path of going back to Godhead. So what does this tell us? That the sufferings that Kunti Devi are apparently asking for are unreal, phantasmagoria, like a tiger swallowing a person in a dream. But the impetus that it gives us, which is making progress in devotional service, that is real. So by agreeing to accept something that is unreal or that has no factual basis, and getting in return for that something that is eternal, factual, and to our to our to our to our eternal benefit, it's a great bargain. Where is the where is the where is the loss over there? There is absolutely no loss. That is why Kunti Devi, she is saying that vipada santu, that let these dangers come again and again. So Kunti Devi and the Acharyas, they're basically guiding us to the path of giving up something that is small, temporary, imaginary, insignificant, in exchange of something that is enormous and eternal. Now the verse, suddenly, when you look at the verse, then suddenly it stands on its own merit. So next question, the person who's reading this verse may ask that what has been asked of us is Mahajana Gata Supantha, that we should follow in the footsteps of the Mahajans. And Kunti Devi, she's not one of the Mahajans officially, but she is of that caliber. So what does that mean? That we also pray like Kunti Devi, that in order, so we should make this as a part of our as a part of our meditation, and in response to this, Lord Brahma helps us. So Lord Brahma, when he's praying to Krishna in the 10th canto, chapter 14, verse 58, so this is in the Brahma Vimohan Leela, and Brahma says, Padam Padam Yat Vipalam Natesha, that the material world is a place where there is danger at every steps. So we don't have to ask for it. The miseries are already there. Maybe we see it, maybe we do not. Most of us see it, we definitely experience it. Somebody might say that I have no miseries. And there was once a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and early days, somewhere in one of the West Coast temples, and he for whatever reason he got fried out. He moved out of the temple, and nothing to do with devotees. So Prabhupada was once, his disciples were driving him in a car. They pulled him in a gas station, and this devotee or ex-devotee, he's the one who's pumping gas over there. So he's putting gas, he looks inside the car, he sees Prabhupada, Prabhupada looks at him, and then defiantly he says that um, at least I'm free now. And the point he was making is that I don't have to get up for Mangal Aarti, I don't have to chant 16 rounds, I don't have to be a vegetarian. I mean, he didn't make all those points, but that was the context. So at least I'm free now. And then Prabhupada looked at him and said, that, really? Are you free from birth, death, disease, and old age? And he didn't have anything to say. So even if we are lucky enough, and I don't know if anybody is, but even if you're lucky enough to not have any other miseries, we still have this misery of there is no greater misery than death. We still have this misery of inevitable death. We still have this misery of a body that is slowly aging, and every day it is a little weaker than what it was the day before. So we have that calamity. Vipada shantu tah shashvat tatra tatra. Kunti Devi says, Vipada, calamities, shantu, let there be shashvat again and again. Tatra tatra, there and there. So we have that already. We have constant calamities that are there coming again and again. We don't need to ask for it. But what we need to do is to, and that is the real instruction Kunti Devi is saying, what we need to do is to use that as an opportunity to apuna bhavadarshan, to make sure that we do not have to take to this the darshan of this material world. We have to use this as an impetus to make advancements in our spiritual life. So in this verse, Kunti Devi, she addresses Krishna as Jagat Guru. And the purpose of a guru is that they go beyond the surface to explain what is not clearly discernible. And that is what Krishna is helping us find over here. And in the later verses, we'll see that as Jagat Guru, he is trying to show us that these material temporary misery, enjoyments are actually miseries. They're contrary to our experiential feedback. And that's what the Guru does. They remove the superfluous and they reveal the essential core. Okay, next verse. Any questions on this? Okay. Janmaishwarya Shutashi Bhiredaman Madha Puman Nevarhati Abhidhatum Vai Twam Kinchan Gocharam. My Lord, your Lordship can easily be approached, but only by those who are materially exhausted. One who is on the path of material progress, trying to improve himself with respectable parentage, great opulence, high education, and bodily beauty, cannot approach you with sincere feeling. So in the 24th verse, Kunti Devi had expressed gratitude at the constant protection of Krishna for her and her family. Then in the 25th verse, the previous verse, she offers to pay the seemingly high price of a constant series of trials and tribulation just to stay fixed in the devotion of Krishna. So this verse explains why is Kunti Devi doing it? Why is she willing to accept repeated calamities in order to see Krishna's hand. So the one thing that you will notice, that between the previous verse and this verse, Kunti Devi has changed the object of the subject of the verse. The object is always Krishna, but earlier on she was talking about herself, that I would like to see calamities again and again. In this verse, she's talking about everybody, and the flow is natural, because even when Kunti Devi is talking about herself, she's talking about us, and even when she's talking about us, perhaps she is talking about herself. So she's not like us. She's at a completely different exalted platform, but she's taking that role. But the point that she's making is that all this is not just for me. Somebody may read this verse and say, "Oh, Kunti Devi, aunt of Krishna." But here she is saying that anyone who is running after this Janma Aishwarya Shruta Sribhir, there is little hope for them to make spiritual advancements. So essentially, she is contrasting two kinds of people: people who seek material shelter and people who do not seek material shelter. So Prabhupada in the purport says, therefore, the four principles of material advancement, namely high parentage, Janma, good wealth, Aishwarya, high education, Shruta, and attractive beauty, Shri, are, so to speak, disqualifications for progress on the path of spiritual advancement. So I'll take a pause over here, and I want to hear from you that Prabhupada uses this phrase, so to speak. What does that mean? Why Prabhupada inserted that phrase in the purport?
Where is it, Roji? Sorry, so to speak.
So where you see where Prabhupada says 1, 2, 3, 4, high parentage, good wealth, and then he says are, so to speak, disqualifications for progress on the path of spiritual advancement.
Because those can be used in the service of the Lord. Like so if they're not, then they're disqualification. But if they're used, then they're not disqualification.
Very good, very good. So that's the point that Prabhupada makes, which Kunti Devi will make more and more, that they're not disqualifications. And that's why Prabhupada is careful. He says, so to speak, means that there is a high probability. That is why they are being called out, but they're not a certainty. So in terms of the attraction to material things, Prabhupada has a humorous story. I'll quickly share it with you. That there was once a rich man, and his wife fell sick. So it so happened the day his wife fell sick, his maid also fell sick. So the rich man went and got a doctor. The doctor examined the wife, examined the maid, and the doctor said, "Your wife is not very sick. She has 99 degrees temperature, but your maid is very sick. She has 104-degree temperature." So when the wife heard this, she became very angry. And she said, "Who's the mistress over here? Who's the maid? Why am I at 99 and why is she at 104? I should be at 104. And Prabhupada says that is the nature of materialists. When they say somebody else burning with material fervor, when they see somebody else feverishly trying to achieve material things, they say, that's what we should be. We should be the one who should have the 104 fever. And so Chanakya Pandit, he speaks from both Well, he speaks from all three levels, material, moral, and spiritual. But this is him speaking from a more material perspective. So he says, avidyam jivanam shunyam, dikshunyascha abandavaha, putrahinam graham shinyam, sarvashunya daridrata. That life without knowledge is empty. Any place is empty which is devoid of friends or temple. A family without a son is empty. And everything is empty for one who is daridra, one who is poor. That is the typical conception of the materialists. Now, contrast that with the statement made by Parikshit Maharaj in the Bhagavatam. I'm sorry, Sukdev Goswami, he makes the statement to Parikshit Maharaj. This appears in the second canto. Deyapatya kalatra udesh atmasenasya asatsvapi. Pesham pramata nidanam pashyanapi na pashyat. That person devoid of Atma Tattva do not inquire into the problems of life, being too attached to fallible soldiers like the body, children, and wife. Although sufficiently experienced, they still do not see their inevitable destruction. So why are these disqualifications from a spiritual perspective? What happens if a person is born with beauty and opulence and wealth and intelligence? Does that mean that Krishna will not accept him as a devotee? And the answer is, of course, no. So that is why Kunti Devi, in the verse, she uses the term edamanamada, that with progressively increasing intoxication. So the discrimination is not on the part of Krishna. The discrimination is on the part of the person who is pursuing life objectives. Krishna is the same. He doesn't care. Rich or poor, famous or infamous, he doesn't care. But Kunti Devi is making this point that people who are obsessed with the Janma Aishwarya, Shruta Shribhir, so Edamana Madha Puman, so it is because of their obsession they are not able to take to spirituality. And then she contrasts this with a different category of people that she calls as Akinchan Gocharam. So Akinchan means one who is materially exhausted. So she does not use the word materially impoverished. So materially exhausted means no more interested in material things. So you may have one rasgulla, two rasgulla. Doesn't make a difference to you. But it does not mean that you have no rasgullas. So Akinchana Gocharam means that they're just not interested in it. They may have it, they may not have it. That is, she does not talk about that. But all she's talking about is that they are simply not interested in it. Because they are not interested in it, then Kunti Devi says, certainly, why Tvam, that you, Krishna, are accessible to them. So the reason that Krishna is accessible to them is because they have let go of their material preoccupation. It does not mean that if somebody is born ugly, or somebody is born poor, or somebody is born infamous, automatically becomes a devotee. Right? Because in the beginning, Kunti Devi is talking about Janma Aishwarya Shruta Shribhir, knowledge, beauty, high birth, and Aishwarya, opulence. So does not mean the opposite of it promises one devotion. But the point is that when one is when one becomes akinchan, when one becomes exhausted, when one becomes disinterested in this, then at that time they are more, more, it is more conducive to the person taking to spirituality. So Prabhupada says that even a beggar could be attached to his penny. So renunciation means not simply to renounce the objects of desire, but to renounce the desire for the objects. It is not just the matter of having unmet needs, but feeling no need for the needs. So it goes deeper. It's not a matter of what you have, but what you feel about what you have. It's not a matter of what you need, but it's a matter of what you feel about those needs. And that is what will make one more conducive to spirituality or less conducive. Now, again, neither of the two guarantees devotion. All that it makes is it makes one more favorable or less favorable. So, so Kunti Devi has given two reasons that she prays to be put into difficulty. One, that she would become materially exhausted, lose faith in the material world, and be thus motivated to approach Krishna, and thus motivated, she will call to Krishna in a mood of helplessness, and Krishna will then reciprocate to that mood. So she builds this chain that calamities, materially exhausted, spiritually inclined, call to Krishna in a mood of helplessness, call to Krishna in a mood of helplessness, Krishna reciprocates, and devotional progress happens. Okay. Any questions on this? Comments?
Any signs to detect that, Prabhuji, like how to identify if we are materially exhausted? Because, like, we see sometimes that we are like, there's this, we are in this curve, right? Like, sign. So, um, it goes up and down. Sometimes we are on this side of the pendulum and sometimes on the other side. So, we feel vairagya sometimes and sometimes we don't.
It's a very good question for practicing devotees. And um, um, two things come to my mind. So one is, of course, it's a little bit of a catch-22 that Prabhupada's disciples would approach him and ask him a slightly different question. How do we know that we are making spiritual progress? And Prabhupada would say, are you developing material detachment? That's how you will know that you're making spiritual progress. So your question, of course, flips it around. So the answer would be that do you feel you're making spiritual progress? So so if your interest in serving the deities and the devotees and the holy name is increasing, then you don't have to look for it. That am I making material? Am I becoming more materially detached? You should take it as a given that it is happening. Second part is this is an answer from my Guru Maharaj, that the strongest symptom of material attachment, or let me put that as a question to all of you. What is the strongest symptom of material attachment?
To be the enjoyer.
something more. So the strongest symptom is of material, of wanting to be the material enjoyer, is envy. So the nature of envy is that you want what the other person has. It does not mean that you need it, but you simply want it because another person has it. You're driving down your car, I have a small Prius, and then suddenly a Jaguar pulls up behind on my side, and I'm like, I want that Jaguar. Now my Prius is good enough to take me from point A to point B. I don't need that Jaguar. But the reason I have it is because of envy, that I want what the other person has. So that's another way to see that. Uh, um, do you see this envy in yourself, or do we see this envy in ourselves going down? If it is, it is a it is the yellow canary test, that if there is the uh, the flip side of envy is being happy for other people's happiness. So if we see that happening in us, that somebody down the street has bought a bigger house, we are happy for the person. Not because he has a bigger loan to pay, but because he has a bigger house to live in. Or a colleague of ours gets promoted, we're happy for that, right? So all these are signs that the fever of envy is subsiding, and that is a sure short sign of material detachment.
Thank you, Guru.
Thank you. Okay, so there are no other questions. We'll go to the next verse, 1:827. Namo kinchan vittaya nivrittagun vrittaye atmaramya shantaya kevalya pataye namaha. My obeisances are unto you, who are the property of the materially impoverished. You have nothing to do with the actions and reactions of the material modes of nature. You are self-satisfied, and therefore you are the most gentle and are master of the monists. So in these two verses, 27 and 28, Kunti Devi is indirectly, she's lamenting that now that she is opulent, her son is the emperor of the whole world, they have no enemies, no danger from anywhere, that now they will not see Krishna again. And factually, that's what is happening. That Krishna is on the chariot, getting ready to leave. Till the time the battle of Mahabharata was being fought, till the time all the politicking was happening, Krishna was constantly by their side. And they had daily darshan of Krishna. Now that it is all being taken care of, Krishna is leaving. So in the previous verse, Kunti Devi, she had contrasted the Akinchan Gocharam with the Janmaheshwarya Shrutashribhir Edhaman Madha. So one who is materially exhausted to one who is madly pursuing Janmaheshwarya Shruta Shribhir. The former, the Akinchan Gocharam, they have no faith in material shelter. And they're willing to approach Krishna, while the latter, they are still feverishly, they're still looking for water in the mirage. So Prabhupada in the purport, Prabhupada says, a living being is finished as soon as there is nothing to possess. Therefore, a living being cannot be, in the real sense of the term, a renouncer. A living, I think Lalita Mataji, can you mute your computer? Thank you. Where was I? So Prabhupada says that therefore a living being cannot be, in the real sense of term, a renouncer. A living being renounces something for gaining something more valuable. Akinchan means one who has nothing to give materially. A factual devotee or Mahatma does not give anything material to anyone because he has already left all material assets. He can, however, deliver the supreme asset, namely the personality of Godhead, because he is the only property of a factual devotee. So here the term akinchan. So previously Kunti Devi had used the term akinchan gocharam. Here he uses the term akinchan vittaya. Vittaya akinchan gocharam means that one who takes shelter. One akinchan vinchaya vittaya is who is the property of the materially impoverished, and Prabhupada uses that to talk about the Paramhansas. So they are Akinchan Vittaya because you can only give what you possess. Because they have Krishna as their property, they can give Krishna. They're already Akinchan Gochram, they're already materially exhausted, but they are Akinchan Vittaya. So they possess Krishna. So therefore they can give Krishna. So one may question on reading this verse that this material opulence or distress, they are gunavritaya, right? So Kunti Devi herself uses the term gunavritaya. So gunavritaya means they are the actions and the reactions of gunas, of the material modes of nature. And if Krishna is akinchan vritaya, if Krishna is the property of the material impoverished, does that mean that Krishna is also gunavritaya? So does that mean that Krishna is also materially conditioned? So putting it more simply, being materially opulent or not, they're still material conditions. But if they become a prerequisite to approaching Krishna, then does not that impose materiality on Krishna? That something material, you're using something to get something. So when you're doing something material, does that not mean that what you're getting is also material? So Kunti Devi and Srila Prabhupada clarifies that Krishna is the same. He makes himself as accessible to either the materially engrossed or the materially exhausted. And the analogy is that the same exam, two students are taking it. One finds it very hard, one finds it very easy. The exam is still the same. The difference is how well have they prepared for it. So Krishna is the same, but this materiality impacts upon the ability of the person to approach them. So Prabhupada says Krishna is not Daridra Narayan. Mahatma Gandhi would say that Krishna is Daridra Narayan, which means that he's the Lord of the poor people. And Prabhupada would get upset, saying Krishna is not Daridra Narayan. He's worshipped by the most opulent people. But at the same time, Krishna is also not the property of the opulent people. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says himself, chapter 5, verse 15, says, Nadate kaschat papam na cheva sukritam vidu agyane avritam jnanam tena moyante jantava. Krishna says, I don't have anything to do with one's sinful or pious activities. The people only say because they are ignorant. And the understanding is pious activities make one opulence and sinful activities cause one suffering. You see, I have nothing to do with one's opulence or suffering. So Krishna is Atmaramya. He is fully um, self-satisfied, and that is why Kunti uses this particular term over here. She says, Atmaramya Shantaya Kevalaya Pataye Namaha. So he is not materially agitated. Anybody influenced by the modes becomes agitated. So he says Krishna is not. He is Atmaramya, and thus he is Shantaya. That is why he is peaceful. So once again, repeating for emphasis, the impact of the opulence is on the jiva, not on Krishna. But then one may now take the different position that, okay, we accept that Krishna is spiritual, but does not that make jiva material? Because you're saying that the jiva can use material exhaustion or material infatuation to either make more or less spiritual advancements. So Srila Prabhupada makes a very powerful statement to explain this in the purport. And if you have a pen and paper, you should note it, because this statement should become, and Prabhupada puts it very casually in the purport. He does not bold it, he does not italicize it, but very, very powerful statement. It should become the basis of our as sadhakas, of our devotional life. So Prabhupada says, unless one is able to see everything as spiritual in relationship with the Supreme Lord, one must always distinguish between spirit and matter. This is our, so this part I am saying, so this is our adhikar. So we cannot pretend to be, even though the jiva, the soul is completely spiritual, we are not. Why? Because we are conditioned. So that's why Prabhupada says that unless one is able to see everything as spiritual in relationship with Krishna, one must distinguish between spirit and matter. So that is why this distinction between spirit and matter is an essential part of the execution of devotional service for devotees that are still not perfected. So this distinction does not apply to Kunti Devi, even though she is speaking out of humility, but that distinction does not apply for her. The advanced devotees can use everything in the service of Krishna. The example that is given is, there are so many examples, like Gaur Kishore Das Babaji and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji was completely very, very poor, nothing. He was, he literally, all his possessions were fitting in a small bag. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was the proprietor of 64 temples. Very, very opulent. But both of them were on the same level because everything that they had, they were using in the service of Krishna. We are not at that level because we still do not see everything in relationship with the Supreme Lord. So an analogy that is given is that if you're holding a sack of wheat in your hand and somebody comes and gives you a pot of nectar, the only way that you can accept that pot of nectar is by letting go of that sack of wheat. So as long as we have material attachments, we cannot take to the spiritual progress unless we give up the material attachments. If a person does not have the sack of wheat in the hand, he can accept anything. He can accept the pot of nectar, he can accept any other gulab jamuns or whatever is given in the service of Krishna. But that is not true for our case. We are strongly holding on to the sack of wheat, which is the material conception of life. So The point is that we have to be cognizant of that the process of making spiritual advancement is letting go of that sack of wheat and extending our hand towards the pot of nectar. And Kunti Devi, just because it is an important point, she has made it twice, through negation and through affirmation. So earlier she had said that Krishna has nothing to do with the modes. And now she says that Krishna is Kevalya Pataya. Same verse. She's making both the points. So Kevalya Pataya means the master of the monists. And the master of the monist, the defining quality of the monist is that they are beyond the modes. So as the master of the monist, Krishna is completely spiritual. Just as a point of note, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's translation to these verses are quite a bit different from Prabhupada's. So when Prabhupada translates, and I'm guessing Prabhupada is I don't have access to Sridhar Swami's commentary, but he basically based his commentary on either Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur or Sridhar Swami. So I'm guessing these are Sridhar Swami's interpretation of the verse. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he translates the verse as this particular verse he translates as, I offer my respects to he who is partial to his devotees. So Kunti Devi in Prabhupada's translation is talking about Krishna's impartiality. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur is talking about his partiality. When Prabhupada translates, he says that Krishna is the master of the monists. He has complete equilibrium, which means that he treats everybody the same. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur is actually emphasizing this point in negation. That actually no, Krishna is partial. He treats the devotees partially, and it's probably not within the scope of this discussion. But if somebody wants, I have an analysis that compares Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's interpretation with Prabhupada's or Sridhar Swami's interpretation. And it's one of those things that can get you to understand that how both of them can be right. It's kind of saying 6 of one and half a dozen of others, just a matter of understanding the bigger picture. But I won't go through it now in the interest of time. So verses, we concluded this section from verse 23 to 27, where the essential message that is given is that material detachment accompanied with distress and poverty is an impetus for the devotees to remember the Lord. And one who is materially intoxicated cannot approach the Lord. Okay, questions, comments?
Hare Krishna Prabhu here, Sarangadas. I think there's a verse somewhere where it said that when one is saturated with the material world and get exhausted, almost the same, but I couldn't figure it out. I was trying to search for it, but I couldn't find it. There's a similar understanding that there is another verse I've read somewhere that someone who has been saturated, who has been beaten by material nature, then he he's eligible to something like that. I can't find it.
I'm sure there are quite a few verses with this, because the whole process of devotional service is that of these two things: material detachment and spiritual attachment. So if you look at all the preachings, all the lessons, all the pastimes, they will either promote one of the two or both of them: material detachment or spiritual attachment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Baba.
Okay, so there are no more questions. We can go to the next verse, the next section of verses 1:28. Mannitvam kalam mishanam anadi nidhanam vibhum samam charantam sarvatra bhushanam yanmitah kali. My Lord, I consider your lordship to be eternal time, the supreme controller, without beginning and end, the all-pervasive one. In distributing your mercy, you're equal to everyone. The dissensions between living beings are due to social intercourse. So in 9 verses, from 28 to 36, Kunti Devi talks about the more achintya aspect of, or the seemingly achintya, the more inconceivable aspects of Krishna. What do people see, and what is the reality behind it? So this verse in itself, it accomplishes many things. So it explains and it may seem like a non sequitur that previously Kunti Devi is talking about how people who are materially impoverished or attracted take or do not take to Krishna consciousness. And now suddenly she is saying that, my Lord, your eternal time, the supreme controller. But and we can expect that when Kunti Devi is saying it, there is a thread that she is building, which will be revealed to us. So the verse it explains the interplay between destiny and endeavor, and we'll see how it does that. And really speaking, Kunti Devi is doing that to clear Krishna of any accusations of partiality. So the point that Kunti Devi is trying to make over here is that people suffer and enjoy because of their own karma. Krishna has nothing to do with it. And the reason that Kunti Devi is talking about this enjoyment and suffering is because she just spoke about enjoyment and suffering, but in a different context. She spoke about enjoyment and suffering, saying that people who suffer are more likely to take to Krishna consciousness than people who are enjoying or hankering for enjoyment. So then one may ask that, is this then given by Krishna? Does Krishna make us suffer so that we can take to Krishna consciousness, because we know Krishna wants us to come back to him? And Kunti Devi is saying that that is not true. All this is happening is because of one's own destiny. But the reason she says that I'm bringing it up now is, if you have lemons, make, what do they say? If you have lemons, make
Lemonade.
Make lemonade. Thank you. So if you have lemons, make lemonade. Right. So if you have been unfortunate enough to have performed impious activities because of which you are suffering, then make the most of it. Use this suffering to get yourself detached from this material world and become akinchan gochara. In this verse, Kunti Devi also, she describes the time feature of Krishna. And it is interesting that, and Kunti Devi is doing all this to, in one verse, she wants to explain the whole science of karma. So she's picking every word very, very carefully. So how does karma work? The way karma works is that you do good and bad activities. The Paramatma is the witness to that. It records the good and bad activities. Everything, everybody else are agents. Yamraj is an agent, Yamduts are an agent, but ultimately Paramatma is a witness to all your good and bad activities. And then because of that, as you take birth again, depending on the law of karma, the very same Paramatma will give you enjoyment and suffering. So that is why Kunti Devi is invoking the time feature of Krishna. So she is looking at Krishna standing right in front of her, with two arms, with a smiling face, with a peacock feather, and she is saying, "You are Kalam Anadim Nidanam," that you are time without beginning and end. You are Vibhum, you are all pervading. You not only transcend time, but you also transcend space. So this is the Paramatma feature of Krishna, that is present all the time, everywhere. That is aware of everything that has happened everywhere in the past, present, and future. And there are definitions of Paramatma that are given to us in Bhagavad Gita 1132, 1317. Similarly, in Bhagavatam 1:13-49, the Paramatma feature is spoken about. So, so Kunti Devi is calling upon the impartiality of Krishna to explain his apparent partiality. So one may think, like some people actually say, God is very unkind to me because he has done fill in the blank. He has not given me good health, or not given me wealth, or whatever it is. So they actually blame God or Krishna for it. So the points that Kunti Devi is making is, and Prabhupada, he has a fairly long purport on this, and instead of reading the entire purport, I've summarized it for you in 4 points. So the first point Prabhupada made says, Paramatma is Kala or eternal time, and as Vibhum is all pervading and a witness to all our actions, good or bad. So based on this, the Paramatma is giving the conditioned souls happiness and distress. The Lord is neither friendly nor inimical, and everybody is enjoying the results of their own activities executed during Bhutanam Yan Mitaha Kali. So it is immature and incorrect for one to blame Krishna either so somebody might say, if Krishna wanted me to come, why did he make me opponent? Or somebody might say, if Krishna wants me to have faith in him, can he make me opponent? So it is incorrect and immature for a person to blame their condition on Krishna. And the reason Kunti Devi is putting this verse over here is to make us understand that she has just now spoken about material prosperity or material distress or the desire for that, but she is saying Krishna has nothing to do with that. It is only because of you that you are in this situation, but having come to this situation, now do the right thing. Use it to whatever you have, use it to the best of the ability. And again, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's interpretations are a little different in this case. And while Srila Prabhupada says that Krishna is Kalam, is impartial to all, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, I see you as time destroying the impious and protecting the pious. So again, his mood, this entire set of verses, he steers towards, Sridhar Swami steers it towards Krishna's partiality, impartiality, putting the burden on the jiva that we are basically evoking in us. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he takes on the more rasika bhav, the more emotive part of it, saying that it is Krishna who is partial to his devotees, who will actually actively make arrangements for the devotee to be protected and come back to him. This verse also sets the stage for Kunti Devi to talk about the inconceivable features of Krishna. So in this verse, she has introduced us somehow, or at a basic level, that you're without beginning and end, you're all pervading. In distributing your mercy, you're equal to everyone, but the dissensions that are there are because of the social intercourse. So, if one were to ask more deeply, then one may say that if Krishna is equal to everyone and then he is all powerful, then he could have devised some other way. Why? If you keep asking why, at some point you have to say that's what Krishna did. Why did Krishna let the Mahabharata battle be fought? Some people say, couldn't he have just changed the mentality of the people? Couldn't he have just made Duryodhan a devotee? Couldn't he have just made Dhritarashtra submissive to the Pandavas? Does that not reflect on limitations on the part of Krishna? So ultimately, at some point, you have to start accepting the achintya part of Krishna. And Kunti Devi will develop it more, but right now she's laying the basis of that. Okay, questions, comments?
So Prabhuji, in the previous, sorry, sorry, my phone was. So in the previous verses, it, especially in the Prabhupada's purport, right? Like you mentioned, he makes a very powerful statement about using everything in the Lord's service, like whether it is, like not seeing the duality, like just use everything for the service. But we do see that even like exalted devotee like Kunti Maharani, she is also in one sense seeing duality, like she's asking for distress versus like so I mean it seems like a contradiction in that sense, that she is above the modes, but she's above this duality thing, and but still she's asking for duality. Like, I mean,
right.
she can, I mean, now that everything, like, Krishna will go away and, Yudhishthira will become the king, but she can still practice devotional service. She can still think of the Lord, but she is still asking for material distress. So, like, that's kind of, or is she just asking so that, I don't know whether she's asking for us or.
Yeah. That would be the answer. That Kunti Devi is speaking on the platform of her audience, that she is asking for us, and a devotee of the stature of Kunti Devi, she does not see any duality. She sees everything in relationship to Krishna. But we do see. That's why Prabhupada makes the statement that unless one sees everything in relationship to Krishna, one must make the distinction between matter and spirit. So, in a way, that's the point Srila Prabhupada is making. Like the example is that there is this there are certain devotees, I forget what they're called, they do not submit to sadhana bhakti, right? What are they called? I forget the name. But they will not follow the rules and regulations of bhakti. They will not say that why chant 16 rounds? Why not chant 16 million rounds? Whether you chant one round or 16 rounds, Krishna sees the bhav. And how can eating onion come? How can an onion come between you and Krishna? How can the onion be that powerful that it will come between you and Krishna? And and the answer is that yes, the onion is not that powerful to come between you and Krishna, but it is powerful enough to defeat you. Maybe it won't be able to defeat Krishna, but it can defeat you. So it's not you're not compromising on the strength of Krishna, you're accepting your own weakness here. And that's what Kunti Devi is doing. So the point you're making is right, that she's not at that level. She is far beyond that level, but she's taking on that position so that she can pray to Krishna, and we can pray to Krishna based on her realizations.
Thank you.
Okay. So we'll do one more verse, and after that we'll stop for question answers. Na ved kaschet bhagavanschikirshitam tave hamanasyanam vidambanam nayasya kaschet dayato asti karchid devasyascha vishamatirnanam. O Lord, no one can understand your transcendental pastimes. You appear to be human and so are misleading. So I'm sorry. No one can understand your transcendental pastimes, which appear to be human and so are misleading. You have no specific object of favor, nor do you have any object of envy. People only imagine that you are partial. So Kunti Devi is building on this inconceivable feature of Krishna. So in the previous set of verses, she is trying to establish the neutrality of Krishna. And the reason I bought a Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's alternate translation was that he uses the same verse to bring about Krishna's partiality. So every statement that Kunti Devi made to promote the neutrality of Krishna can also be countered by some pastime, some statement, some interaction which shows Krishna's partiality. So in order to counter any conceivable argument, so at this point Kunti Devi might stop, and then somebody might raise their hand and then say that why did Krishna favor the Pandavas and not the Kauravas? Why did Krishna let Abhimanyu kill but save Parishit Maharaj? Why did Krishna save the Pandavas but let the Upa-Pandavas die? Why did Krishna let Dronachar be killed but Ashwathama be saved? They were both Brahmins. So she's saying that no one can understand your transcendental pastimes. And how is she, and the particular example that she's giving is his human-like pastimes. So she says, Na Veda Kaschit Bhagavan's Chikashatam, that no one understands the pastimes of the Lord, they are achintya. So in the famous 4.7 verse, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives 3 reasons for his descents, which we are all familiar with: protect his devotees, annihilate the miscreants, establish the principles of religion. In a lecture, Srila Prabhupada says that there is a 4th reason for his descent, and that is Krishna's free will. And he comes just because he wants to, not because he needs to. So if he has given a minute free will, he has much more free will. So he just says that today I feel like going to this particular universe and see what's going on. And then he comes. So Kunti Devi is illustrating these pastimes of Krishna as bewildering. So, iha manasya. Iha manasya means they are just human. So, how are they human? Krishna took birth. After he took birth, he was a small child. As a small child, he was scared. And then he grew up. And then when he grew up, he had girlfriends. And then when he grew up, he married. And then he became a warrior. And then ultimately, he gave up his body. So if you sit and talk about Krishna's pastimes, then somebody will say, yeah, I know many other people who have similar pastimes. So they are very, very, very human-like. Some people may think, and not only think, they actually, some people say that Krishna is just a great historical figure. Some people say that he may have been a great person, but over time his activities have been distorted and exaggerated. Some people outright say that this is all mythology. So because of this, Kunti Devi says, Nrinam Vidambanam, that it creates Vidambanam, it creates a lot of confusion amongst people. But the scriptures tell us that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The same scriptures tell us that Krishna is impartial, that no one is the object of his favor, na yasid kashchid dayiti asto, and nor does he envy anybody. Karachit dveshasya. So, just like people, Nranam, they get bewildered by his human pastimes because of mental speculation. Matir, they say, Matir yasmin vishama. They attribute this sense of partiality to Krishna. So Kunti Devi is using logic here, saying that just like people are bewildered by the human-like pastimes of Krishna, they are similarly bewildered by his partiality, his seeming partiality. So she is assuming the first statement to be axiomatically true. That yes, Krishna is God, but still people are bewildered by his pastime. So the point she is trying to make is that Krishna is bewildering. So if he is bewildering, then one can very well understand that this notion of partiality versus impartiality that is attributed to Krishna is also bewildering. So how do we understand that Krishna's human-like pastimes, when we get bewildered by it, how do we understand that Krishna is God? We understand that on the basis of the scriptures. Similarly, when we look at Krishna's partiality, if we get bewildered by it, how do we resolve it? We resolve it by what the scriptures tell us, which basically tells us that Krishna is actually impartial. So Srila Prabhupada in the purport and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, both they use this analogy of the sun to still try and explain. So even the Kunti Devi has said it is Achintya, that just like people will confused about Krishna's partiality, Krishna's human-like pastimes, people will get confused by Krishna's partiality, seeming partiality. But still, we try and understand. So they give the analogy of the sun, that the sun distributes his light to everyone. So from the perspective of the sun, the light goes everywhere. But the blind person is indifferent to the sun. The Chakravak birds, they become happy when the sun rises. And the owls, they become disturbed when the sun rises. So in all cases, the sun is the same. But the dissension is because of where the person is positioned. The blind person cannot see the sun, does not care. The Chakravak birds, they get invigorated by the suns, they are happy. The owls, they like the darkness, they hate the sun. The fault is not the sun. Similarly, different people, they attribute different qualities to the Lord because that is the qualities that they are themselves projecting on. Okay, so I'll stop over here and see. I went a little bit over 5 minutes over. See if there are any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. This
Right.
last point you made was very beautiful. It reflects on ourselves how we see Krishna. And I was also thinking of the Krishna in the in the wrestling arena, and Prabhupada talks about how different people looked at Krishna because of their own position, relationship with him.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, Prabhupada does in one of his lecture on this verse. He uses the very same pastime to explain this point, that how he appeared to somebody as death personified, to somebody appear as the most beautiful, to somebody appear as a child, and Krishna is Krishna, but each person was looking at it based on their own conception.
Right. Thank you. And I also enjoy I love when you bring in Srila Prabhupada's memories in these discussions. Thank you, Prabhu.
Sure, thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Saran Prabhu.
You know, just a comment. In all the pastime of Krishna, those that are close to Krishna, like Arjun, Kunti Devi, even Radharani, you know, Sudama, and all that, they are the one who has. And when we see at their lila, they had suffered a lot, even though they were the closest to Krishna.
You're right. If you look at the Pandavas, if you look at the life of the Pandavas, then other than the fact that they won the war, but the entire life was one of trials and tribulations, right from the time that they were born. It was one trial and another trial. So it is there. Krishna uses his devotees. He's not going to do that to us, but he does that to his pure devotees.
For us to learn.
Yes. If there's nothing else, we can end early today. I just don't want to. I guess I could do another verse, but I don't want to encroach on the Q&A time. So okay, we'll end now. Thank you very much. Vanchakalpatarubhayaschit kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, शिला प्रभुपाद की जय, ठाकुर प्रेमानंद। Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you.
Thank you.
Prabhuji. Wonderful lecture. Thank you so much.